Call the special meeting of the Itasca County Board of Commissioners to order. It's Thursday, March 5th, 2020, 7 p.m. We are in the Itasca County Boardroom. Are there any additions to the agenda tonight? Commissioner
Chair, if
Trump.
we could, I'd like to add item 4, discussion on the blue option.
Any other additions?
Mr. Chair, I guess I'd like to add number 5, additional meetings.
Any other additions? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 1, survey update. So we have a survey report on the original survey, 337 responses, and the updated survey, 793 responses. Questions and the breakdowns. Open it up to the board for comments and discussion.
Sure. Mr. Chair.
Commissioner.
So just on the back page, the second page, I think it's 5, I want to make sure I'm correct here. When it talks about bond payments versus the sales tax, just make note that I think that the number or the percent might be transferred just the opposite. Because I know the previous response showed roughly 88% in favor of it, and it's absolutely opposite this time. So, and I know last Monday when I was down at the House testifying, I was given a fact sheet and it showed 85 or 88%. Again, I don't have it in front of me. I apologize, but so I just want to make that clear that I think it's backwards.
Yeah, so
It's at 88%.
that was the old survey was at 88.72%.
Right.
Yeah, this one might be backwards.
At 80, it shows 82%
Right.
that don't want it. So
Right. Is there anything here that surprises anybody?
well, I should clarify, Mr. Chair. Yeah, 71% shows impose a sales tax, and then it shows 643% put it on property tax. That's the number that's goofy there.
Yeah, that
Okay.
it just doesn't.
It doesn't, something's not right. That might be
Just
total
doesn't add up.
responses.
Yeah, something's not reading correctly.
Right,
there.
rather than a percent, so.
So I'll make a note to just check in with Amanda and get that corrected. Follow up.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Axe.
So with our old and our new, we have over 1,000 surveys put together. How are we going to add all of these up for a grand total in the end here? Has anybody thought about that? Where we're able to give it to the newspaper, before the 17th, so they understand here's our survey results and how do you want to compile these?
David.
Well, I think we're going to have to keep them separate because I'm guessing that those 337, there's a number of those that responded again to the new survey. So I don't
They
think-
might have, exactly.
Yeah, so it's not.
Turn around and
we're not-
redid it. Yep.
I think originally, Mr. Chair, we talked about, analyzing both. Whatever we can,
Sure.
rationally come up with that, shows something, a trend or whatever it might be, but to look at each one separately, because I agree. I think, a lot of these are the same people that have responded, but just to the new survey.
Sure. Well, we've had a good turnout. This is 793 of them is 500 more than what the city had for the skating hockey arena, so, yeah. This survey will be turned off when the day we decide to vote, is that our understanding? March 17th?
I would, yeah, I would think so. Once an option is selected,
We take one last look at it before we vote, so we understand what general public likes, and then we turn it off.
Commissioner
Well,
Smith?
I think so. I think,
Yeah.
we need to, make some sort of sense of the survey, and it needs to be brought to the public, and then, obviously what we plan to do going forward, whether it's shut it off, make sure that the public knows that that's the date, and that it, going forward, it's not gonna be there.
Yeah, I would say, Mr. Chair, as long as we haven't made up our mind yet or haven't taken a vote, we still got some town hall meetings here that going on, and some people probably don't know about it yet either, so might as well keep it going up until that date.
I would concur with Commissioner Timquist. I'd like to leave it at least until April 1st or a few days after that from my last meeting.
Okay. I'm good with all that. Just curious how you guys like to handle it.
Anything else on this item? We'll move on to item 2, unidentified project costs. I'm going to defer to Commissioner Ives on this.
Well, so some of these costs that we don't have, to my understanding, land acquisition as of today. I think we have a green site secure. We talked about this in our last meeting, but with the first right to purchase. But I guess we're still looking for the land on the orange site, and I guess that would probably be when item number 4 comes up. Will need to be for the blue site. You'll need to have that. But is there any more development when it comes to, third floor remodel, any more numbers there, or site development? Can we update any of those numbers yet? Do we have, I'm looking at Lucas, is there, nope, okay. You didn't give me but I'm kind of looking at that type of thing where, do we have any new up-to-date numbers where we can say, here's a better number. I mean, here's a closer number for an estimated budget on what, option A, option B, option C will cost. Do we have any of those at this point in time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Nothing at this point in time? We're not? Brett, did Brett lock in anything on option orange?
Haven't seen anything yet.
Nothing? We haven't had. Okay. I have concerns, but I mean, a handshake's a handshake, and that a boy or I'll do. In today's world, we got to have it in paper. This is what I agree to, and we talked about some of this in the past. I was hoping that we can get to a more close defined project cost, be it for whatever site and whatever option we have here, and we're not there yet. I mean, if we have to be there before the 17th, no matter what. I'd like to see us there, when the agenda number 5 comes up. I'd like to see us be able to have those numbers by that date, no matter what. Kind of a drop dead date. Otherwise, I don't know how anybody makes a decision without having numbers. Can't buy a house without knowing what number it's going to cost to buy. So There's my, Mr. Chair, I guess that's my biggest thing. We need to have up-to-date numbers, more realistic numbers if possible. And we understand everything is an estimate, but give us your best estimate. Yeah, and I would say we should probably go through integrity and, kind of justify all numbers to make sure it's a doable number. Larry and Pete, they're pretty knowledgeable on. They're the ones who gave you all these numbers, Lucas. Yeah, on the green and the orange at this point in time.
Correct.
Yeah. I guess they should be probably vetting the numbers, making sure they're realistic numbers. Yeah. Mr. Walker, we haven't heard, has he had any luck?
Jeff's actually here.
Mr. Walker, can you come to the microphone, Mr. Walker? Have you had any luck?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Tinkoff.
before Jeff talks,
Oops, sorry.
that was closed session negotiations, and
Okay.
and Jeff and Brett were given the authority to go out and negotiate with a budget in mind. So we really can't talk numbers yet tonight, and I'm sure that's part of why some of that isn't here. I'm sure we'll go back into closed session, finalize all that, and then come back into open session and talk.
Nice to see you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the offer to come out and talk to you.
Nice to see you. Thank you, Mr. Tinquist.
Anything else on this item? If not, we'll move on to item 3, orange option, third floor design discussion. I'll just start this off. In comparing the green and the orange plans, the orange plan is somewhat lacking in that it doesn't really address third floor related court remodel, and be it space or security or technology. And we've had discussions during these meetings on that topic. We certainly have the opportunity to address these needs through the course of this project, and I just feel that now is the appropriate time to do so. So I just put that out there for discussion. Commissioner Snyder.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And again, it's one of those that it's hard, it's kind of like the strategy and negotiations, but, you have to have a starting point somewhere. And so, with the orange, or I believe even in the blue, we'll get into that discussion a little later. Both of those options had 2 courtrooms above the current annex. Mm-hmm. And so then it comes down to, how do we create kind of the same atmosphere for the third or the fourth judge, perhaps. So, to Commissioner DiNucci's point is that, that we all felt that needed to be addressed. So I think at this point, our administrator has set up some meetings with the judicial just to, further that discussion along. And it's to, bring it back to the table so that we know, again, when we have to start adding costs to a plan, regardless if it's orange or blue, that we have accurate figures to put in there. So
I would agree.
Commissioner Ives.
With either being orange or blue, when you do and David, please step in here anytime, having a contractor's license, you might know more than I. When doing a remodel, within your envelope, you might not have to do upgrading as it comes to new building codes. When you do an addition and add on to an old structure, and there is a percentage of square footage if it's more than and blah blah blah. I guess I need to know, and I'm not sure any of us know this yet, but we need to find out with connecting a new building to this existing courthouse, will this trigger more updated building codes that we need to live by? You know, be it ADA, be it fresh air return, be it, you know, heat, AC, water. I guess I'm thinking mechanical mostly, and then I think roof load. So I guess I don't know if the city has jurisdiction or if it goes to the state has jurisdiction. I know the state has jurisdiction on the jail, but what else happens, I guess, and maybe you.
I don't really know on commercial for sure. You know,
Okay.
I could speak to residential, how it affects that. My guess is on a commercial structure, anything that you touch is gonna have to be updated. But if if we're doing some work on this end, anything down here probably wouldn't have to be,
Okay.
as long as you aren't infringing upon that piece of infrastructure. If it's something that's tying into it, then maybe you do. And
We might have to add some
you know.
firewalls, something like
yeah, and
that.
if it's like your sprinkler system, if your pumps need to be upgraded because you don't have enough water flow and those kinds of things. But
We need to
You're
look
right,
at,
it's
I guess
something-
why I bring it up is I think we need to look into this in private life commercial. You know, if I go outside my envelope of the box and add a 20 by 20 addition onto a hotel or something like that for an elevator, I just got triggered and I'm going to have to put in a sprinkler system, at 15 grand per room. Well, times that by 59, and you understand that I'm going to find a place somehow to do it inside the envelope for that much money. So it's just a thought that's rolled in my head a little bit where we need to think about this, what some other things that might happen. I don't know if the city is involved or if the state has jurisdiction. I guess I'd like to find that out to begin with. So.
Commissioner Center.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good point. Mr. Ives, Commissioner Ives. I wonder if if we could do, we probably need to put together a to-do list tonight. And, if we could shove this off to Brett, he could probably talk to Contegrity, who I know they communicate back and forth the state and whoever they need to. They could probably get that answer pretty quick.
Yeah, Peter, Larry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other discussion on this topic? If not, we'll move on to item 4, discussion of blue option. Commissioner Trump.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When the blue option and the orange options came out, they were quite similar. I think the blue option got tarnished a little bit by the high cost of the third floor remodel. But if we operated under the assumption that both plans talked about 2 courtrooms above the annex building, it was a pretty similar situation there. And if we operate under the same thought process where we would just work on like the west end of the third floor for the, expanding that court area there, then they are pretty much, in my mind, similar, except for the fact that the blue option avoids the fire hall and the city properties, whereas the orange option initially, I think, was trying to avoid the properties to the west of the dry cleaners and basically go into the fire hall area. But that's kind of morphed now to also include those other properties, which may or may not add cost to the project. And I guess my thought was that we should at least be thinking about or have some options if negotiations with the city don't go well, that we might want to take another look at the blue option and consider that might be a less costly land acquisition option for the county. I'll just start it off at that if there's other comments.
Commissioner Ives.
Mr. Chair, I like some of the things that Leo had in his drawing. The 2 courtrooms that built over the annex. That was a interesting way of doing it. And that got rolled into the orange, which I thought was a good idea. Your remodeling of the third floor complete, I think that meetings in the future here will determine, where we're gonna go with, with the third floor and the courts and so on and so forth, and they have to happen pretty quick, but the understanding of, what they can handle and so on and so forth. The question then becomes, should we be looking at the east side again then too, besides just the blue area? I mean, we eliminated the east building. I mean, we've vetted that number out, with the task force that was made, and they vetted that out for 11 months. I still have problems with putting a jail on the busiest corner of the county, but that's me personally. But I don't have a problem having other things come back on the table. Then you want to look at the east side again one more time, and we've drawn that 5 different times, 5 different ways over on the east side of the building. I don't know if you can get around building on a creek or not. That's the real question. So.
Well, I'd like to say it's nice to see you have some concern for the city, Commissioner Ives, but along those lines, we don't really need the fire hall to expand, and the blue option certainly addresses that in the events that negotiated. So, I mean, the fire hall is not necessary to acquire for the project to move forward. So, Commissioner Trent, I could certainly support taking another look at the blue option.
Mr. Chair, then would you support looking at the east side then too?
No, I'm not as interested in that. I think for some reasons we've already discussed.
Which was what? We eliminated it.
Yeah, and I think there's for that the concerns with the underground stream, creek, and the construction requirements for that area just seem, along with the parking issue and veteran service office, I'd be less interested in that. Mr. Thompson.
Gentlemen, I just want to remind the board of the blue option from a jail perspective. I'm not looking at the other land acquisitions or anything else. The blue option for the jail was very staff intensive. It's going to be a minimum of 8 new staff due to the way that was laid out and designed. That's fine if that's the option, but the board's got to understand you're probably going to have to hire a dozen staff over the orange or the green design, just the way the blue is laid out.
Thank you.
Say, Lucas.
Commissioner
Mr.
Snyder.
Chair. So I know, again, we had a brief glimpse of it, and I know you've given your comments on it, and we appreciate that. Are there other ways to, within that same footprint, how it kind of laid out, and I think it went at an angle, but is there other ways to lay the jail out in it? I know we looked at one, or there was one given to us, but are there other options that could fall within that?
We could have the architect look at it. The problem with the way it was laid out was the length of it and the angle for safety, the distances between your backup and the other staff components was just too much. So you'd have to add posts. So and your primary booking would have a post, and then you'd come down that hallway, turn that 45 and go all the way down to the other hallway, where both the other designs take and compact those and have that one prime hallway. So the DOC is the official capacity who'd come in, look at the plans and say, this is how many staff you need. We don't get to actually say that. The DOC sets the staffing analysis for the new facility before it opens. But Mr. Thompson's the one here and looked at it and says, going to run you 8 staff minimum.
Sure.
8 staff to grand total of 12, you said?
Could be up to 12. He said it was going to be a post and a half, and each post is technically 4 staff, but it's 5 with the relief factor. So he said it just by looking at it, not doing his homework on it, it was going to be at least 1.5 posts over the other designs.
So, and if we're looking at, what, $90,000 a head times 12? Is that about right, or times
Yeah,
10?
I think it's somewhere in the 70s.
Okay, times 10? So-
Commissioner Trent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know that's how the Contegrity had laid it out, but I think I'm kind of in the same vein as Commissioner Snyder in that have them take another look at it. Maybe there's some ways that they could look at the design of how they laid it out and find a more efficient way of dealing with it. I know it's not the square, it's more the rectangle, but have them take another shot at
We
it.
could have Klein McCarthy look at it, the architects.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else here? Move on to item 5, additional meetings, Commissioner Ives.
Mr. Chair, I guess we were looking at calendar, and I look at my calendar and I say, we have a board meeting coming up on the 10th. We don't have anything on the 12th. We have a board meeting on the 17th, and that's the day we're supposed to make decisions and vote on where we're going. My suggestion would be that we set another jail meeting on the 12th to hash out, I guess, anything and everything that we might need to hash out. I guess I'd like to make sure we've had meetings with third floor judges. I guess I need to have things in writing with land and any additional updated prices that come with every option that we're talking about. If we're not going to stick to the 17th of March to make a decision, then let's talk about different dates from there.
Commissioner Snyder.
I agree with Burl. That's a lot to do. And I know, I don't recall what meeting, we've had so doggone many of them, but we did talk about trying to do the 17th, but it could be pushed if we had to. And so I'm wondering, because 17th actually, I think was a work session, maybe it's best that it would be the 24th. And it would give us our time to have another jail task force on the scheduled night of the 19th. It would give us other county board meetings and,
And allow his open
Right.
house too.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, it accommodates a lot of things, and I 1 week is not going to kill us on that time schedule. I think we're treading on thin ice if we go much beyond that, but maybe that's an idea.
Mr. Chair, I would echo the sentiments because I have 2 community meetings coming up, Orba on the 16th and Coleraine on the 23rd, so I would love to get those meetings in at least. And I know I got one in Bovee on the 1st, but
So
at
if we
least
went,
I
we
get
went
2
to
of
the
the 3.
20.
Well, bottom line is we can't make a decision if we don't have all the facts and figures with us. So, I mean, we're kind of at the mercy of that too, until we get our land acquisition sealed up and some of these other things hashed out. Kind of going back to some of the discussion now, at most of these jail meetings, there's been at least one judge present, and we've heard from a couple of them speak during input time or whatever, but maybe it should be an actual agenda item so that we have a dialogue with the 5 of us and whoever wants to represent them to make sure that we're at a point where we're agreeing to something. I mean, I know there's been some work with Brett and whatever and trying to come up with something, but so all 5 of us are hearing it from them and we're getting to a point where we're actually agreeing on a solution here.
Gentlemen, you want to call a special meeting and call it March 31st and have it on your 5th Tuesday?
No,
And
that's
strictly
too.
jail related, that's it, meeting?
Yeah, I'm
That
fine
might
with,
not be a bad idea.
I'm fine with everything that's been discussed here on additional
Because
meetings.
that's the 5th, there wouldn't be a normal meeting that day, that'd be the 5th, so, or 5th Tuesday.
You'd be able to get everything in, Leo, at that time, and?
Yeah, if we could do it at 3 o'clock, that would be helpful instead of 2:30
Sure.
for me.
That gives us time then to do all those other things.
Right.
And And so we just one extra meeting on the 31st.
It's just one extra meeting on the 31st and not the 12th.
Yeah.
Yep, not the
I think the 12th is pretty early.
right. We'd have our regular on the 19th,
Yep.
okay?
And then regular board, normal board meetings, yeah.
Right, and we just have an extra on the 31st.
I would, if you need a motion for that, I would move a meeting on the 31st at 3 o'clock.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That motion carries. Anything else on this topic?
No, I appreciate that,
I'll
gentlemen.
give us time.
All right, we'll move into citizen input. Questions. Does anyone like to participate tonight? Please come on up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Dan Butterfield, and I live in Grand Rapids, well, outside of Grand Rapids, Harris Township. I got a couple questions. Been sitting here listening now to most of these. I missed a few, but Commissioner Tinquist, I'm very, very glad you brought up about communications between you five and the judges. Because that, from what I've seen, it's only been comments here, and that's really not sharing a lot of information. I think there needs to be a huge talk. Has anybody actually come up with a business plan? Now, and the reason I ask that is I'm looking at this as a business. No matter how you look at it, it's, give and take. It's an expense. Somebody's paying for it. When you do a plan for a business, you go to a bank, you certainly don't go in and ask them, I want $1 million, if you don't have something in mind. Now, from what I've seen so far, it's all over the page. You guys aren't agreeing really on anything. And that bothers me. I know right now if it went to a vote, in certain instances, I can pretty much guarantee you most of us would know exactly who's going to vote which way. Understandable, it ain't a big thing. But there's a big difference between needs and wants. Now, when I see, okay, DOC says, yeah, we're going to shut your jail down. We come back and say, okay, we need a jail. Well, number one, do we? Now, from what Lucas has stated in the writing that I've got, is it's about average 2.5 million per year. Okay, at a minimum of $70 million, because you know that this jail is probably going to cost at least that much. That's 28 years of no jail, farming people out. That's a long time. Can I justify $70+ million just so I don't have to pay that bill for 28 years? I don't know. Can you justify it in a home business or in a home budget? I don't know. Does it make sense? Maybe, maybe not. I'm just not seeing it. We do need a jail, according to what DOC says, or we don't have to build one. We don't need courtrooms. DOC does not say that. State law says we have to make adequate facilities for the judges. Okay, I understand that. My definition of adequate facilities probably differs a lot from the judge's definition. Another thing is, when I look at the court dockets, Mondays are absolute chaos, guaranteed, in the court system. I've been there, I've watched it. Okay, but the rest of the days of the week aren't necessarily that way. How come they can't adjust their schedule? And I'm sure I'm going to find out shortly how come they can't, but it's just one of them things. Anytime I worked at any place, there was times we had to adjust our schedules to compensate for whatever was going on. Security
This building?
of any of it, this one, whatever. Okay, we used to have 3 bailiffs. Now we're down to 2. What's saying there can't be a bailiff at the top of that stairway to keep anybody going in or out? Or, if you got to put in metal detectors or whatever it might be, so be it. But all of a sudden we went from 3 bailiffs to 2 bailiffs, and now they're complaining about, it's not secure. I mean, there's things we can do to change this. The Disabilities Act, okay? I don't think that there's a chance that they can prove that we're not compliant. We have an assistant county attorney, no offense meant to him, but we have an assistant county attorney who is in a wheelchair. He motivates all over this building, and he is in the courtrooms. So that's already proven to me that that Disability Act doesn't hold a lot of water. Granted, yes, it can be improved. But as far as I can see, we're already to the point where if he can get around, I think other people can get around. Okay, we have certain entrances in this building and certain ways to motor around it. I think I'm pretty much done. Oh, and who's on the building committee? Because everything I've seen so far, okay, it references the old report, 104-page report for cost factors and whatever modifications. That's all old news. That was thrown out. So now what do we got that we as the public can look at and say, okay, I agree with this or I don't agree with this? You know, I mean, give me a reason for why you want this or why you need this. You know, it's like Burl and I have talked before about courtroom size. There's a big difference between wants and needs. You know, are we going to have bathrooms that are accessible? You know, that's something that has to be looked at. When the hospital designed, oh, it's quite a few years ago, the architects came up with a design, everybody got to look at it. I know some of the people that worked in housekeeping, and they said right off the bat, are we not moving to the new hospital? And they said, absolutely, you're an important part of keeping up maintenance. They said, show us one broom closet in this whole drawing. There wasn't one. So, you know, there's a lot of things to look at. Do we need 6-inch plumbing? Do we need 8-inch plumbing? I mean, you know, there's requirements for buildings. Yeah, I'd like to see more answers that I can justify talking to my neighbors with, saying, you know, this is a good idea. Or when they come back and say, no, one of them came back and said, figure out what the cost is per year to not build anything. And yeah, 28 and a half years, or 28 years. That's a long time. I'm done. Any questions?
Commissioner Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Dan. And I agree. There's questions out there that our citizens have. We certainly should get the answers. So can I go back to, you said 2.5 million. I'm assuming at the beginning, you must be referring to the kind of like do nothing option, or if we housed prisoners out?
I'm referring to the Itasca jail project paperwork that sits like this.
Yep, okay.
Right in there, it says current limited space, yada, yada, yada.
Okay.
On average months, okay, to house, on average months is $6,050 per day.
Yep.
And it goes up to, in peak months, that equals 2.31 million to 2.772 million.
Sure.
Okay, well, that's what I was using for the reference.
Yeah, and maybe we could put something together that is a little more simpler or easier to understand, but it's basically if we did nothing and housed our prisoners out based on population, what it would cost. You know, factoring in transportation and all of the plus that happens with the other sheriffs that house them for us. So we can do a better job with that. We'll get something together.
And there's also another factor too, Terry, that even with those numbers, you're going to need to build some kind of a facility here for holding 72-hour hold or something. So there's a cost there too.
Yeah, you got to upgrade. You got to upgrade your old facility. Not even a 72-hour hold, but a 6-hour hold. You got to upgrade that, as DOC said, to do all the things just to have a day hold, not even overnight hold. But yeah, add in the cars, add in the people, add 6% growth too.
Yeah,
per year. So.
But see, we're not
And also
seeing that.
try to find the space.
Yeah, we're not seeing that from the public's perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any of that.
Right.
I'm not getting the communications other than when you and I talk.
Yeah, we need to explain
And
that to the community better.
It's somewhat irritating that, you know, we're going to be spending a lot of money or not, depending on what happens, and we really don't have anything to go on.
We'll put something better together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Floor is open for citizen input. Judge Chandler.
Yeah, good evening, Judge Chandler, Itasca County. I just want to respond to Mr. Butterfield one point, that's regarding the ADA issue. It's not just Mr. Haig, our Assistant County Attorney. We have an Assistant Public Defender who's also wheelchair bound. And I have both of those attorneys in the same courtroom at the same time before me regularly. And the mobility issues for both of them to get around in my courtroom is poor. That's just attorneys who appear regularly. That doesn't account the public. And as I've said before, my concern is not necessarily for my safety. It's the public's, this is the public's building. It's the public's courthouse. It's the public's courtrooms. And for people of the general public to be able to come and access justice and do so without having to be worried of whether or not they're going to be able to access the counter at court administration, that they're going to be able to read signs, that they're going to be able to have the assistance that they need, that they're going to be able to hear during a court hearing, all of those things. So ADA is just not wheelchair accessibility, but it's all those things. It's the accessibility of potential jurors to be able to come and serve on a jury. As I stated in one of the town hall meetings Mr. Ives had, I've had potential jurors that need a walker, that have a service dog. Those things are not going to be reduced in our future with our community. So those are the things that the ADA addresses and that we need to address here, that you need to address with any future plans. I think it's been made clear from the judges that the ADA is a terrific, significant issue that needs to be addressed and cannot be ignored. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for citizen input? Anyone else for citizen input? Last call on citizen input. Commissioners having no further business before us, we are adjourned.